Welcome back, everyone. Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry says more than 100 Palestinians were killed in a wave of Israeli strikes overnight. The Israeli military says they carried out a series of strikes on what they described as dozens of terror targets and terrorists. The IDF strikes came after Israel's defense minister accused Hamas of an attack in Gaza that killed an Israeli soldier and of breaching the terms of return deceased hostages' bodies. Today, Israeli defense forces say that they have begun the renewed enforcement of the ceasefire, but the events of the past 24 hours make it clear just how fragile that ceasefire is. Our Tom Soufi-Burridge has a look at how the historic agreement came together and the challenges all sides now face to turn it into a lasting peace.
After 2 years of war, Gaza is in ruins. And now, after 2 weeks, the fragile US-brokered ceasefire facing its biggest test. The IDF launching airstrikes overnight, killing more than 100 Palestinians, including more than 50 children, in less than 12 hours, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. Israel saying it targeted terrorists and responded after one of its soldiers was killed in Gaza Tuesday. But amid US pressure, the truce is now back on. Before last night, the agreement allowing nearly 500,000 Palestinians to move back to ruined homes in northern Gaza, says the UN. As more desperately needed aid flows into the strip. Suleiman al-Najjar showing us the spot where his family lived and where he says 20 of his relatives died when a missile struck earlier in the war. Suleiman dreams one day Gaza will be rebuilt. His hope now is that the nightmare of war is over. In Israel, the euphoria when 20 living hostages were released, replaced by the painful process of returning the dead. So far, 15 funerals after Hamas handed back some hostages' bodies under the deal. Ella Jaime saying goodbye to her husband Tal more than 2 years after he was killed. In Gaza, Arab allies of the US providing Hamas with heavy machinery as the search continues for 13 more dead hostages whose remains have not yet been returned.
Hi. Thanks for having us over. Yes, of course.
Orna and Ronan Neutra from Long Island, New York, are still waiting to bury their son Omer, an IDF tank commander who was killed during the October 7 terror attack.
You know, I've been imagining in my head the day when he's brought back to us, and I know I'm going to be devastated. But I also know it's really necessary.
How critical do you believe that US pressure is right now to keep this deal on track?
We absolutely believe that this deal would not have gone through without US pressure, and that the US is necessary in order to maintain it and to put all the different parts together so that hopefully, you know, we can move forward to the next phases.
Under the next phase of President Trump's plan, Hamas should disarm and an international peacekeeping force be deployed. But recent images emerging from Gaza suggest Hamas is reasserting control. It's why some prominent Israelis believe the Trump plan will ultimately fail.
Hamas will not give up its weapons, and there is no one in the world that can take away their weapons, and they have no good reasons to give up their weapons and to agree to anything.
So Trump and others are making kind of empty threats at the moment, you believe?
I mean, Trump believes that the external pressure on Hamas from Qatar, Egypt, Turkey and other countries might work. I don't believe that it will happen, but let's give it a chance.
The Trump administration is giving this peace process the time and energy of its top officials. Vice President Vance in Israel last week pressuring all sides and expressing optimism that progress now could pave the way for a new era in the Middle East. And this Israeli shares that view.
I believe that the Americans won't let this fail, that they will use every tool in their diplomatic or undiplomatic toolbox to make sure that it happens.
Gershon Baskin has been communicating with Hamas for 18 years and says earlier this year he was passing messages between Hamas and Trump envoy Steve Witkoff without using Witkoff's name.
Witkoff said to me, if I see my name coming up in an Israeli intelligence report that you're talking to Hamas and using my name, this channel is dead. So I called them the Americans or the guy from Washington or used all kinds of names like that, but everyone knew who we were talking about.
The White House would not confirm or deny Baskin's role. But he argues that after the war in Gaza, Hamas is all but finished, and that fellow Palestinians can persuade the remnants of the group to disarm. Also key to success, he says, is Donald Trump's power over Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Trump's strong relationship, not just with Israel, but with Gulf Arab states too.
We have never seen the kind of power diplomacy that's been employed here by the emissaries of the president, the envoys of the president, by the president himself. Trump locked Netanyahu into the deal, and Netanyahu could not say no. The American relationship with the region is much broader and deeper than it's ever been.
For now, getting beyond phase one of President Trump's deal is proving difficult. In Gaza, Palestinians have been burying the unidentified bodies of dozens of detainees returned by Israel as part of the agreement. This American Palestinian aid worker, who examined at least 10 corpses, says she saw clear evidence of torture.
Every single person that I looked at had their hands and feet bound, or like traces of their hands and feet were bound in some way. There were people whose fingertips were cut off.
The IDF rejects the allegations as, quote, false propaganda, saying all the bodies returned so far are from combatants within the Gaza Strip. The US, brokering a deal between deep-seated enemies with a long legacy of death and destruction, will test President Trump's ability to hold this fragile peace plan in place. The past 24 hours has shown a brighter future for Gaza is still some way off.
Is that attainable is still the question. Our thanks to Tom Soufi-Burridge for that.